Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the pleasure to talk to Erin Hutchins. Hello, Erin. How are you doing?
Hello. Hello to both of you. Well, thank you. Looking forward to chatting with you both.
Great, Erin. So, Erin, we could try to introduce you, but you know yourself much better than we do. So, who is Erin? How did she came in coaching? What does she do nowadays in coaching?
Okay. I'm going to share, and then you all let me know if I'm sharing too much or stop me. Okay.
Go for it.
So, yes, Erin Hutchins. I'm based outside of Washington, D.C. area. Actually, that's where I'm from. And I have lived in different places, also lived in the UK. I married a Brit who is also my business partner, and his name is Mike Hutchins. And we're both the co-founders of ACT Leadership, which is a coach training, executive coaching company that focuses on leadership performance. And we partner with the Brown School of Professional Studies in Rhode Island to offer our training programs. So more about me. Before I became a coach, I was a consultant. So I know both of you have experience in that area too. Actually, both Mike and I were former consultants turned coaches, still do some consulting. But what I do every day is coaching. I'm also CEO of ACT Leadership of the business, so I'm running my company. And I've also started a new program on embodiment because that's kind of my new really area of interest in helping people, is helping them become more embodied. So that's what I'm up to these days. We have two kids together. One just had a birthday and living life. So balancing a lot of life and a lot of work at the same time.
Now, how do you got in coaching?
How did I get into coaching?
Yeah.
So backstory. So I was in consulting and I wasn't happy because I didn't feel like I was making a real difference. And I became really fascinated with people's subconscious and how their subconscious was driving their decision making. And I actually trained as a hypnotherapist, like probably 20 years ago now. And from that training, I learned how much the subconscious was really driving people's behavior, and how much of things that were unprocessed really, impacted people's everyday life. So I found hypnotherapy. I decided I didn't want to really work in that context. And also, people didn't really understand when I told people I was doing hypnotherapy, their association was like, oh, you make people like, cluck like a chicken. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. So it kind of had, people didn't really know what that meant. And then it was Mike who said to me, why don't you train as a coach? I think you would be a really good coach. And so that's where, back in 2010, I went through my coach training and trained as a coach. That's how I found coaching.
Great career that you're going on. And you mentioned that you're just going to start something new, embodiment. And the question that came up to me is like, okay, you're a mother, you have kids, you have your business, which is the ACT Leadership. How have you set up things, certainly in the business, that allows you to start something new? Because I imagine you're not going to leave what you're doing. So how did you organize yourself to be able to do this?
That's a great question I ask myself every day. Um, how did I organize myself? So Mike and I built this company together. We built ACT Leadership together. We started out really small and we've grown over the last 10 years. We're still a small business, but I do believe we're one of the main players in coach training nowadays, especially in the States. We'd love to actually come expand more to Europe, TBD there. But I've learned about really hiring people that I trust working with people that are hugely accountable for what they do. And actually, a lot of people that we hired are working mothers
Mm,
uh, because we started out hiring my sister right off the bat because she was a former consultant for Price Waterhouse, working 50 hours a week. She had her first kid, and they weren't able to be flexible, giving her less hours a week. So I said, "Well, come work for us. We need someone to program manage." She did, and then it just kind of trickled into there's all this really great talent out there. People become, you know, leaders are becoming mothers, and then they are looking for more part-time work where they can work from home and also balance both. And so then we hired a few more that, part-time, and they're still with us today. So, I've really focused on hiring people that we trust, creating a lot of process, creating a lot of structure, and also, built-in accountability.
mm. And how do you select? Because yeah, finding the right people is sometimes a or a great challenge to find. Hey, will they fit in? So, do you have a certain way to look a checklist that you go through to figure out if that's the right person for the business?
I wish. And you probably both have experience in this area with people, right? It's like some people are a good fit and some people
Yeah.
aren't. So part of it is like, can we work together do they love the mission of the company? Are they just as
Mm,
passionate about it as we are? And are they able to be flexible and grow, and be willing to grow and learn new skills? And also the accountability part for me is huge
mm,
because there's a lot of people out there that don't do anything, that look great on a resume, but actually cannot execute or deliver. And it may just be that they're also just not a good fit.
yeah.
So it's been, I think for me, I've realized I'm never going to get away from that. Is like I'm always willing to try people.
Mm,
And after, a few months, I can sort of sense around, is this person going to be right? And also, are they really, do they want to be committed to what we're trying to grow and accomplish, to our mission over a long period of time, and not just coming sort of in and out. So I've had a lot of lessons learned about people over the years, and I'm still learning, as we go.
That's it's a good point and such important perspective to remember as well. One question that strikes me, so you spoke about, creating a coaching company, serving leadership, growing leaders. How much do you intentionally bring the content into how you lead and manage the organization and its culture?
Mhm. Every day we practice what we teach, and every day we bring it in. And actually, Mike and I, it's been really hard being CEO of a company, or, both of us running this company and having to step out of directing, telling, you know, creating structure for people and allowing them to step in to be responsible and accountable. And that has been a huge transition. It's not something that just happens overnight.
mm,
Some people are more comfortable with taking on those roles, and some people are not comfortable, or they're used to being told what to do, and they're used to being managed. And so there's a lot of unlearning there. So for Mike and I, particularly, we've had to sort of stay quiet and not always respond, and let them respond. Let them be the first to respond and tell us. And then us give, our role becomes more of how do we provide feedback to them around the decisions and their choices that they're making versus actually making the decisions, on their behalf. So that's been the biggest shift that we continue to work towards in an organization. And essentially that's what we help our clients with is that, you know, helping people become more responsible and accountable for themselves and for their work.
Yeah, that's what caught my attention because often as coaches, or many coaches are sort of self-employed, and so there's a way that we can almost sit on the, in the grandstand and point and, sit on the sidelines. And the context you're in, you've chosen not to do that. What have you learnt about you through this journey of being coach-like, but also leading coach-like?
I think the coach-like piece is like the way that I look as a leader and the way that I particularly lead is like coach-like behavior, like being a coach, like, okay, that's sort of the work that I live in every day. So I feel like it's ingrained in me. And sometimes I have to take that hat off, and I have to act as an advisor, or I have to act as, um, you know, um, I need to give advice, or I need to be able to provide strategic direction or a vision. So I'm a leader as visionary, I'm a leader as coach, I'm a leader as like a mentor. So I find myself, for me as a leader, it's more about learning in which context, which hat I need to be wearing that's going to be most useful at the time. And also really spending time setting the strategic direction and talking a lot about vision. Because I think too, if people don't understand your vision, then they won't get behind you. If their vision's not clear and you don't have a plan to implement vision, it's, yeah, I find that can create, a disconnect amongst, people in the company.
Really getting people inspired in your vision and mission, and be able to communicate in such a way that they get inspired, because at that moment it's much easier to step aside and let it flow.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
And our mission, like, so our company's act, awareness, choice, transformation, like it's always come down. That's why we do what we do, is helping people become more aware so they can expand. They have the capacity to feel like they can make a choice, to lead to the T is like transformative results. So like that's sort of the biggest segue of like that's what got me out of consulting into coaching, because I could see that, well, we need to work on mindsets here. How do we shift our beliefs? How do we shift how we're looking at our problems, how we're looking at strategy? And and I was seeing that the connection between getting results. And so that is our mission. That's always been the mission from day one, is helping people, training people to be able to, um, you know, have that greater awareness so they can be at choice, have more access to choice as a leader or on the team or in whatever context that they're working in.
I love that awareness concept. As coaches, we talk a lot about mindset and this mindset shift. And I see the pattern. Well, you've been playing in this mindset space for a while, and embodiment is what's next. How does that flow as a progressive and exciting pathway?
I think, and I'd be curious, like, to hear too from all of you what you see with your coaching clients if you're coaching. But so I'm an MCC now. I've been coaching for a long time. I've had a lot of hours of coaching, a lot of hours of supervision, supervising students. And with my clients, I go straight into, like, in our coaching sessions, I want them to be aware of what is happening, not just in their head, not the thoughts that they're having, but how that's impacting their whole selves, how that's happening in the body. So a lot of the leaders I coach that come in, they're transitioning from a meeting, they're at senior levels, they have a lot of responsibilities, they have a next meeting they have to go to. So they're thinking like, maybe I should cancel this coaching session because I got to go to my next meeting. I have no space to breathe. And they come in with that anxiety around like, so my first 10 minutes is always like, how do we ground and
Mm.
arrive into our bodies, into our breath, so we can help from a neuroscience perspective, help the brain, like, calm down so we can really be in touch with what is reality and what is actually happening. And and so because if I coach from a place of reactivity where the client's in this state of, from transitioning in, it will only take us so far. So I focus a lot on like noticing. And what I want leaders to do is notice their current state. And it's almost like I kept seeing results of like, it's almost like night and day. When someone can take a few moments to shift into their body and access their breath and access their thinking on a different level, it's like, oh, it's a huge paradigm shift. And so the embodiment passion, or where I'm focusing my attention, my energy, is really helping people to become embodied within themselves. So there's alignment between the mind, body, and which we don't really talk about in coaching, but the spirit too, like, aligning aligning everything that's important. So you show up in, your most authentic, best self to do what you need to do in whatever context you're working in.
That's what you see in martial arts. I've done judo, and when you're sitting in your mind, you lose your balance, and you learn to really get down and put your balance, your point of gravity lower in your stomach to have that strength. And that's
Yes.
what you're exactly talking about as well. To just really, when I was listening to you, it's really when they calm, it's like saying, let's calm down. Let's shut this up for a minute and just like relax,
Yeah.
because at that moment just go in there and it's like, and it's like meditate. People call that also some meditation, but what I believe and what I tell people is, if you have between meetings, like you said, Erin, is to say, hey, take 5 minutes, even if you don't have a space, go to the bathroom and say 5 minutes in the bathroom, just to really what you said, just go, because when you come out, you're going to be a different person than how you came in.
And I think that a lot of people just don't know how, or they don't remember it, right? So they're good intention, they're really well intentioned to do something like that, but then, they become, their day takes them.
Yeah.
Instead of them being in control of their day takes them. And it's like, then they notice the after effect of, oh, you know what? My back hurts, my neck hurts, or my immune system's down, or it's like the symptoms come later, which triggers a lot of people to be more, I think, curious about what's going on with their health. But what you're speaking to is like, yeah, so if we can be more present and mindful of our bodies during the day, then we don't have to wait until the symptoms show up later,
Mhm.
you know. And and so a lot of it, I think, is just giving people the skills of being able to do so. And you know, I trained as a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher years ago. And for me, meditation, my relationship to meditation was interesting because what happened when I learned meditation, it made me suppress all the things that I was feeling because I didn't feel like I was doing it right. It was like, okay, let's get Zen, let's sit in this position and let's not hear our thoughts. Like I should be, okay, the person next to me is like, wow, they look like they're really into it. Like I'm over here like trying to calm my thoughts down and, so for me, it made me feel like I wasn't doing it right. And this is just for me. It's not for,
Yeah.
not talking about other people. But what through the embodiment process, what I teach in this and that is like, let's just feel everything. Let's include it all. Like let's include. And maybe for me it was just a reframe. But let's include everything that we're feeling and make it be okay that there's room for all. And I think we as people don't learn culture. I know for me growing up, I didn't learn how to be with my anger. I didn't learn how to be with sadness. I didn't learn how to express my joy. And so those are all things I had to relearn as an adult to do. And from experience working with leaders, a lot of leaders have to do that as well. They have to relearn how they're processing their emotions, so, in a way where they have emotional agility and emotional freedom versus, other patterns or ways that they've been patterned that lead to suppression.
Talking really about a balance, because when you said when you feel what you experience as a meditation is like saying, hey, cut off your mind and just go back in your body. And what you're saying, and when I speak about meditation, is about those three powers that are, which is your body, your mind, and your spirit. And that is when you can get to the center of that, allow them to be there.
Yeah.
That's the moment where you really get that connection and power.
Yeah. Yes. And then how do you like sustain that connection and power? Like how what does it mean to really like live from that source? That's the question that comes up for me. It's like, that's what I get really jazzed up about. And when I see people, so the embodiment process that I do is through movement and music.
Hmm.
So like think about being in a club without the alcohol. Like think about being in a setting where you are guided through you're being taken through movement to learn how to express stagnant energy. And the music is a vehicle for that transformation. And so, if you think about movement, for example, like movement's been happening since we were like, as humans, like first discovered. Like if you think about like you as a kid, like I was moving all the time when I was a kid. When I was a child, I was my kids are moving all the time. And then we become so stagnant. We become so stagnant as adults. And what I've realized is movement is so important and so for me, it's like one of my highest values around how do I get myself moving, but not just in an unconscious way, but in a conscious way. Um, so,
So what you're saying about movement and music, and it's for the listeners you're talking about triggers, and that's what the question that you asked, how can I sustain and how can I get there? One is practice, but it's finding a kind of trigger that you can generate that you can very quickly, and certainly for leaders to very quickly, because I go down, and even sometimes just a
yeah.
minute or 2 minutes is enough to be really going.
Yeah, and so I guess for those listening, like find your thing that works for you. Like some people it might be that, like finding their pause. Some people it might be like, okay, they need to, after dogs get all like worked up, they shake, Some people it might look like a shake. Some people it might look like closing your eyes and taking a breath or, whatever works for you, but find the thing that does work for you to sort of reset and taking those pauses.
One thing that strikes me in this, we mentioned balance, you mentioned movement, and I can absolutely picture you trying to sit still and meditate, and how that is not going to work. It's like the opposite uh, of what I can see working. I know a lot of people like that, and there's a way that we often view meditation as to sort of get out of your head and to slow down the thinking. And there's this real, I think you said it well. There's a real like sort of a pushback, a withdrawal, a hold back. It's like, no, we've got to create this empty space. And we're so busy pushing everything around that it's actually not really empty. It's filled with the pushing.
Yeah.
And what struck me a moment ago is many of us do all of the movement in our head.
Mhm.
Like it's all ideas, it's all thoughts, it's all possibilities, it's lists, it's checklists, it's responsibilities. And there's just so much movement going on here, but so little movement below this. When
Yeah.
you look at like yoga or Tai Chi, and there's so much value in giving ourselves permission to move elsewhere, not to slow down this movement, but to move over here. And as movement changes or as the flow shifts, things naturally slow down up in our heads. And I think that's a place that we can forget, especially when we get dressed up in our corporate costumes, because then we're restricted to what we're supposed to do in a suit or whatever it is that we're wearing. So there's something about this movement that seems freeing, but even more balanced.
Yeah, and I think some of like the just so what I hear both of you saying too is like I think we're all kind of aligned on like you're able to then consciously choose where your energy flow is, and I don't want that to sound like woo-woo because but I do think it's true. Like you're able to then channel where you're putting your energy, whether it's in your head or in your body and how it gets expressed. And
Let's
one of
let's
the
put it real simply. With awareness of everything,
yeah,
we can choose to get towards transformation. There's a word that kind of you said before that shows up. The act, I think.
yeah. Yeah, and that's it, and when we have experiences in our life that we don't feel like we have the capacity to process, whether it's trauma or stress, or whether it's something significant that has happened to us, and we don't have the tools to process those life events or those the circumstances that we're in, what where I'm really curious is how do we help people not go back into the past to figure out what happened, but how do we somatically help people learn where that lives in the body? Because when the energy can't be fully mobilized, so like let's say you have someone who's gone through a stressful event. They didn't have the tools to know how to process that stressful event, so they internalized it, and if the mind can't hold it, it gets pushed down in the body. So it's like, okay, maybe it landed in their stomach. So before they show up to a meeting at work, maybe they brace their stomach, they hold their stomach because that helps them feel safe in approaching, uncertainty, for example. And so part of this work, part of my curiosity lies with is how do we help people sort of learn how to mobilize the energy to help complete its cycle, help to complete the cycle that it never, that energy or the emotion that can never really complete on its own. And so once we do that somatically, then that energy can be expressed in a new way that is like, that's useful for us. And so, that for me, that's like the crux of this work and the curiosity that I continue to live in, where I see clients like, it's like physical pain, physical things that are showing up for them that they're holding on to, but have no idea what to do with that. And I think nowadays people are more aware that emotions or stuck emotions or traumatic experiences or stress affects our physical health. I think people are making more connections to that nowadays, and there's more curiosity around it instead of just, let me go do this thing to fix my back pain. It's like, oh, well, what's the patterning in my body that I'm holding that makes me feel safe? That is a learned pattern or that I, you know, that has helped me through. It's helped me through my life to feel safe. And so that's the piece right there that I'm really, curious around. And as I develop as a coach, like spending a lot of my time focusing on that.
Mm. One of the things I love about working with the body is it doesn't need to make sense.
Mhm.
And I think this is where a lot of us get stuck. Even with this emotions and emotions getting stuck, there's how does it work? How does it make sense? And I think that's a protective mechanism for lots of us. And when we give ourselves permission to be more than just our mind,
Yeah.
like we have emotions before we have language. And so I'll share with my clients to give them the safety to not be able to put the right words on it, to not be able to describe it intellectually the way that they want to. And this is where metaphors can come up if we're sticking with words, but movements, there's so much wisdom. Like it's a this. Well, let's explore the movement, not the meaning or the story we create about it. And
Yeah.
that sort of curiosity with the safety to give ourselves permission to move is freeing, is the word that comes
I
to
mean,
mind.
even you now, like I'm watching you and you're moving your body more, like you're moving your arms, you were expressing yourself to describe what it is that you wanted to say. And like there was some movement in your body and it was like, okay, there's a loosening, there's something is happening here. Your body is wanting to show you something. And how do we just learn to listen to and tune into what it's trying to tell us? Um, so I love what you're saying and how you're saying that, and just if we were able to learn this early on in life, I don't think we'd be having this conversation today. Like if this was like learning to drink water because we know water is good for us, or learning to eat healthy food, we know healthy food is good for us. If we learn how to listen and tune more, I don't think we'd also be this, society of relying so much on medication or relying so much on that there would be, the huge health crisis I think that we're in now, which I know takes us to a whole nother conversation. I
Yeah.
don't mean I don't mean to like take away from the topic here, but that's just, if it was something that we learn early on, then I just think like, wow, like how powerful could that be?
It's also a great reminder of why, if we didn't learn it back then, it's so important to learn it
Yeah.
now. What is it they say? There's the two best times to plant a tree. One is 20 years ago, the next
Yeah.
one is right now.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Love the metaphors.
Mm. No, it's the question that you bring, and I don't want to go in I say the rabbit hole that you just opened because otherwise I'm going in there. But um, it is an interesting point that I have been asking myself for a while is why, and it's been also with culture, with history going on that says, hey, this thing that we're talking about is like talking about energy. Talk about it 15 years ago, 20 years ago. What are you talking about? We are much more advanced going around this, and it takes its time. But the most important thing is, as you said, Steve, as well, you didn't plant a tree 10 years ago, doesn't matter, but plant a seed now.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have parents that if you want that your kids learn around this, well, it's never too late to start about it because it's something that you can teach them and they can learn it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing running on the treadmill with my daughter lately. Like I am, okay, so my husband, just for context, he can run marathons and he does Ironmans and I don't, I can barely run a mile. But I do a lot of other stuff, but like I can barely run a mile. And where my daughter is in travel soccer, and so now she has to get more fit. So we have this thing about let's run a mile together each time we go down to the gym and we do it together. And I had this breakthrough the other day. Like I actually ran a full mile because I had to turn the music up so loud so I didn't hear my thoughts. Like that's how I did it. That's how I did it. I was because my thoughts are like, okay, you're almost okay, you can give yourself a break now. Like, all like my thoughts are telling me or driving me in that moment. But then when I turned up the music so loud, it was like I can't hear them. I can't hear them. So there's a time and place for like me blocking it out so I could and I feel like I had a bit of a breakthrough with my running. It was like, oh, you know what, maybe I do have the endurance to run a mile, and so it's like this the power of moving your body, but then also balancing with listening to your body and like and what it needs, really tuning in and exploring like what is really possible in that realm. And I think most people exercise to some capacity. So those that are listening, it's like they could probably resonate with how they feel after they exercise, right? Like all the good hormones come out and we feel good. We feel more alive. We feel like, okay, we're more capable of dealing with our problems because we've exercised. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that in itself, that being able to de-stress and be able to sort of move that energy outwards, sort of welcome all the feel-good hormones that come with it when you exercise. And so, and I can't remember totally where I'm going with this conversation, but also just working with my daughter on it too, around emphasizing how important it is to to move the body in some sort of way every single day.
And there's even the studies around it that the mind does not know that if you do the exercise physically, but if you train that you can, like it's people that have
Mm.
been operated to the knee and the doctors and that they tell, well, they tell, so like my mother said, try like in your mind that you're walking, but you can't walk. But the muscles are triggered
Yeah,
to do this. And that's the same what you're saying. It doesn't have to be the physical. It's
right.
getting in the right state. You can do it physically doing it.
Yes.
You can also through the mind, and even you can do a combination of it.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And whatever that looks like for you, even if you're, immobilized, sitting down and moving your arms or moving, moving somehow, like you can find ways that work for your life.
Mm.
Uh, so
It could be simple. I mean, one of my favorite things as a coach is to, I mean, in CTI we call it, it's geography. We want to move, change our relationship even in the room, even if it's twisting a chair to the side. Changing the physicality changes our relationship to what is around us, and so we can see things differently. And there's a real, again, that word freedom comes up, the freedom of when we're feeling stuck, well, sometimes it's because we've just stuck ourselves and we actually haven't moved yet. And there's some wisdom in there for us to tap into.
So, can I ask both of you a question now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
What is it that you do that makes you feel more centered in your body? Like whether it be movement based or not, like what is it that you that that gives you those good endorphins?
So,
Um, yeah.
so for me, I got different types. So one, when I really go deep, is laying down in bed and really go down and really center and let everything flow. I open my mind, I just go flowing, I connect with the universe and I just go. And I feel that energy coming. That's really going, that takes, I can do it quick, but if I do want to do it good, it takes about 15 to half an hour really doing this. And the problem is I always do it when I go to bed, and when I do it, I can't go sleep because I'm fully energized.
Oh, wow. So it
Yeah,
energizes
yeah,
you.
yeah. It's like I'm just going, "Phew," it's
Yeah.
flowing. And then I've learned as well a small trick to really get that 30 seconds to be able to breathe is putting my left hand just above, just at the bottom of my tummy and feel and breathe on my hand. That allows me for 30 seconds to calm down, even if that, and even that 30 seconds allows me to really get, hey, what's coming next? I can do this. These are the
Yeah.
two main things what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Although
Oh,
from my side, there's a couple of simple things that I do. You gave the example of an executive basically sprinting from one meeting to the next, and they haven't really left the last meeting, and they've already started the next meeting before that kind of happens, and there's this whole I'm kind of everywhere space, and so I'll often be intentional about choosing to put down what I've finished and to step into where I'm going.
mm,
Um, and sometimes I kind of do that with go and put the kettle on and get some movement and go down the stairs and get a new cup of tea as I prepare myself for the next meeting. Sometimes it's just, all right, I focus on breathing.
mm.
So take a couple of breaths. It can be real simple. It's cool because I can do it in the workplace and like people aren't going to look at me real weird.
Yeah.
So I can feel safe to do it in the midst of being
Yeah.
busy. But just the decision to finish this for now, it's not finished, but I'm going to let go of that as I step out of that meeting to actually step out of it. All right. And then to step into this meeting with intention.
Yeah. It's like I'm hearing that you like clear a boundary or like clear your energy, create boundaries in order to get into like the next, how you can be present for your next meeting that you're moving into.
Yeah, I mean, there's different words, but that's the essence of it. And it's for me, it's about, all right, when I step into a meeting, I want to be ready to start a meeting.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury that we give our clients of, hey, client, let's take the first 10 minutes to help you get present.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know how much that is because well, often in meetings, I'm the only one that does that
Yeah.
in many contexts. And I find it's really important for me to do that so that I can then help them recover to help us come together so we can be productive in in where we're going. And it's so much better to show up ready to try to do six things all at once and work out what's going on and be confused with everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is good. Well, since we're in this space of action, any tips that you could share that our listeners might be able to go, oh yeah, that is something. I mean, you said before, it's people often don't know it or they don't remember to do it, but what's something that people could take from our conversation and apply in their lives?
I'm just thinking right now, I want to be intentional about what I say.
It's a great example of what we're talking about, actually.
Yeah, I think the first thing is like find your pause, like find what works. I mean, we just heard two examples from Erwin and one from Steve. Like find what works for you to pause to so you can learn how to regulate your nervous system. And like play with it, test it for a day, test it for a week, and see if there's any changes for you. There's research that shows it takes 21 days to change a habit. So if it is working, keep going with it. Like find what works for you. And when you start, if you value that, then it will become more integrated into who you are and how you're showing up in your work every day. And then I think the next piece is find a way to move your body every day, whether that's a walk, even if you're going walking from one meeting to the next, but know that you're moving. Find a way to intentionally move yourself. And work meetings can also take place by over the phone if you're walking and talking. Like find different ways to get outside, find different ways to shift your context throughout the day, see how and pilot these things, see what works and see what doesn't work. And I don't know, like what I'm sure I have a whole thing of tips, but I don't know. Um, I think, again, pointing to people like find your jam, find what works for you, not what works for other people.
Mhm.
Keep playing with other things. Um,
Yeah,
and I
be
know
willing.
no, I was gonna say, I know we talked about a lot on this call, so you have to remind me if you want something more specific,
This
specific from that. Yeah.
this is perfect. I mean, it's also that reminder, sometimes you just got to turn the music all the way up.
Yeah.
And permission. I was in a car the other day driving my daughter to gymnastics, and the car in front, we could see the driver and the passenger like they were dancing. So we kind of turned off our music, turned the windows down, and they had it cranked all the way up. And there's something about um, the innocence of that and giving ourselves permission to go there. Because as you said before, we live in a world where anxiety is default, where
Yeah.
we are redlining from when we wake up in the morning, and we've come to define that as natural. But
Yeah.
just because it's common and it's prevalent actually doesn't mean that it's natural nor that it serves us.
Yeah.
And so to remember, build this awareness, remember the full range of what we have available to us. And from awareness of all of that, we have more choice to be able to transform as I connect back you know, with
And
that.
I love that, like that image is sticking in my mind around like you being, with your girls in the car with the music. And that's something too that, I know for me, like when I was a teenager, I used to listen to music all the time. I had headphones I put on, and it was like there's no worries, right? Oh, there's different types of worries when you're a teenager. But try it now, like for I guess for all your listeners, like put your headphones on, turn up the music loud, see what music gives you, see how your body wants to move, see what energy it creates for you, and maybe you'll just want to dance, right? Like maybe you'll want to dance and create some sort of movement, and if anything, it might bring you some joy for the day. It's like if anything, that small joy, if we can continue to nurture the small joys like what you're pointing to, Steve, it's like we focus so much on what doesn't work or the anxiety of what could happen. And what if I guess this is an inquiry for everybody out there, like what if we just focused on the small joys during the day instead of what could work, what might happen in a way that is fulfilling versus what might not happen. And so just finding those little joys during the day that light you up, and it makes living worthwhile, like for real, like makes life worth, living. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Erin, for those of our listeners that have been inspired by our conversation, that are curious, or that have tried some things and want to share some results, how can people connect with you?
Okay. So first you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying a lot of different like things on LinkedIn at the moment. So come follow me if you like what I have to say, follow me. I want to engage with you there. You can find me on my website, actleader.com. So that's our business. And you can learn more about our programs. We have a lot of advanced programs for coaches like team coaching, next level coaching, the embodied programs. So we have a lot of advanced programs for coaches there. And I think those are probably the two best ways to connect with me is just through LinkedIn or through the website.
Great. Well, Erin, thank you very much for this energizing conversation that we had. Everybody else, thank you very much for listening in. Until the next episode, take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.